Welcome to the King of Iron Fist Tournament 7. Kunimitsu. Kunimitsu. Get ready for the next battle.
Alright, so today I'm going to cover Kuni as a character. I once did another guide with her, but that was mainly in German, so I'm gonna do one in English as well. So the first thing we're gonna notice from 1-1, she's got 3 different options. 1-1-2 is probably the safest she has. Also, if the 2 connects, on counter hit, you get a guaranteed kunai throw. If your opponent didn't try to step and got clipped or got off axis somehow. 1-1-4 is your plus frame move, but your opponent will be able to jet you out of the air for float combo, so be careful using that one. And 1-1-1 is your answer against people who are trying to step the whole mix-up, because both options, doesn't matter if 1-1-2 or 1-1-4, are highly steppable to the right side. Let me demonstrate real quick. As you can see, very steppable. So 1-1-1 is unsafe, but keeps people in check who love to step a lot. Also, just using 1-1, either as a punish to get frame advantage is pretty good if you want to rely on a more neutral heavy game. And on block it's pretty good as well, because it leaves you at -5 and it pushes your opponent back a bit. So against characters with poor jab range, you can still try to move around, or could try to sidestep even. Because of a pushback. Without the pushback that would normally not be possible. Then we've got 1-1 into her Katong stance. This you mainly use against very defensive players who turtle a lot, to go for her teleporting shenanigans or to cancel that into a dash for dash mix-up, but more to that later. 1-2-2 is her 10 frame damage punish, so if you don't want the pure frame advantage, you go for 1-2-2. Also, if you hold back, you can cancel out of the last hit to go into back turn to mix your opponent from there. This is very risky though. People who love to press buttons or people who know Kunimitsu very well will launch you for using that. So treat this string or like a gimmick or a one-time thing, but don't rely on it too heavily. Then 1-2-4. One moment. Then 1, 2, 4. On counter hit, it's a hard knockdown, but if your opponent holds back, he will quickly get up, as you can see. Also, on block it's minus 14, so some characters are able to launch that. I don't recommend using that string. It's pretty useless in my eyes and gives your opponent a chance to do much damage, so better not use it. 2-2 into Karton, however, is pretty darn good, because if I go from 1-1 into Karton, as you can see, I'm plus 4, right? If I use the 2-2 punish though, I actually gain an additional frame. Gives me more time to evade my opponent's attempts to jab in between or do stuff like that. Also great 12 frame punish for its damage. You can just do 2-2 on its own if you want to remain in neutral. So 1-1 is your main punish if you want to remain in neutral and get frames. 1-2-2 is your main 10 frame punish for damage. Your 12 frame punishers, you've got 2 of them. One being 2-2, where you can decide to go into stance for further mix-up, or 4-2, which will leave you on back turned, but more to that later down the line. Then we've got 2-2-2 forward. This one's a bit tricky. So basically, if you noticed that you managed to hit your opponent with a second hit on counter, then you can go for the dash, but it's a bit of a gamble, because you need to have a read that you got that counter, that hit on counter. Because if you don't, the third one is gonna get blocked, you're already minus, then you do the dash, so you're even more minus and you will just get your ass launched. So this one I would just use from time to time. Then we've got the full string, which is pretty good. It's only minus 10 and the last hit on counter gives you a combo. Oops. Even if your opponent tries to jab in between, he will always eat the counter hit. So you will be able to get the combo though you only ate a jab, for example. Also, you can cancel, so you don't do the last hit. So against opponents who are very defensive or are turtling a lot, this is a great option to mix them up or further confuse them. 3-4, I would never use the full string, only use 3 and you're good. Because the second hit is quite slow, can be interrupted, and both hits are high, so very easy to while standing launch punish. If it connects, however, should it connect, you get a guaranteed 4-4-2. 4-2 is probably one of my favorite strings with her, because with that you get into back turned, right? So if you know your opponent is minus 12 or worse and you want to immediately apply pressure through mix-up game, immediately for mix-up game, if it hits, you had +6. So if you were to go for back turn forward 1+2 and your opponent jabs, you would trade. So you would eat the jab, but your opponent eats a pretty defty launch, which is a lot of damage. If I don't fuck it up, that is. Or it's one of those lows where you either use the knife, that can't be low parried because it's a weapon, or the double low, where you can remain in crouch after for full crouch while standing mix up, or stand up immediately with while standing 4 to mid-check your opponent if he wants to try anything. Katong and the different options. We've got Katong 1. As you can see, on counter hit we are plus 12, so we are guaranteed a 4-2 if we are able to hit this, right? It's 15 frames as well, as you can see. So your best option is to either hit your opponent with 2-2 and then go into stance, or to punish your opponent with 2-2 for a move that was minus 12 or worse, and then immediately go for it. And if your opponent did anything at all that was slower than a jab, or even if he jabs, in the worst case scenario you would trade but still get some hits in. You might not get the full string because of a distance, but you will get at least one additional hit in, which gives you the opportunity to pressure some more. Also, if you remember, this is not our only option, right? You could just do 2-2 for example as well, and then immediately go into stance again to force the exact same situation. So it would go something like this, then the counter connects, and then the same thing again. Or you mix it up to go into back turn, use the dash, and cancel out of the dash to go for full crouch or while standing mix up. Or cancel the dash into the flip with an immediate follow up. Or you cancel the flip again to once more go for while standing or full crouch mix up. Thank you very much for the follow. So you've got a lot of options there, right? Also, because this is plus 12 and one of better with punishment tools is Fort 4-2, which is between 9 and 11 frames. If you manage to hit that at the wall, you get a guaranteed wall split, so it's very, very strong. Be careful though, because if this gets blocked because you messed up the timing, you're going to get your ass launched. Katong 2. This one high crushes and sometimes even evades mids. You don't really get anything guaranteed after, but because of a knockdown it leaves you in a favorable position against your opponent. You could go for down forward 3+4 for example, to immediately go for back turned mix up, should it hit. If it doesn't hit, there are different options you have to still evade stuff or retaliate against very button heavy, button mashy opponents who love to press a lot. Then we've got the Leaping Moonblade, Katong 3-2. This on block is very punishable. You're going to get launched if this gets blocked. However, if the first connects, the second is always guaranteed. Also, this string is one of the most damaging launchers. If I were to have Rage, for example, I can do some pretty mean stuff. Let's see. Should be around 100 damage, I think. Close to 100. But as you can see, very, very high risk, high reward launcher. We've got another version with Katong 4-2. This will actually screw your opponent if you catch them doing any kind of hop kick or jumping movement, or if you caught them floating. Sometimes you can pick up Eddy players who used the slide with this to get a combo. It's very contextual though. If the first connects on counter hit, the second is guaranteed. If the first gets blocked or just whiffs and the second connects on counter hit, you actually get a combo as well. Also completely safe on block because it's a low-high string, but the high comes out quite slow, so your opponent might be able to crouch that and while standing launch that. So don't overuse it. Sometimes it's better to just do the first part of a string and then immediately go for sidestep game. To either evade stuff and then go into back turned, or to interrupt your opponent and frustrate him some more. Katong or Setsu Nagake is if you hold forward while you are in Katong stance. It's another transition to go into slide. Also you can go into back turn from there, but to cover the options from the slide first, we've got Setsu Nagake 3, which will both leave us in crouch. As you can see, our opponent has to get up first. In this situation, we are both neutral and we're both in crouch. So while we might not have any real frame advantage, we can still try to mid-check our opponent with while standing 4. If our opponent doesn't know Kunimitsu very well, he will most likely press anything but 4. So he will use a slower move, get hit, and then thinks, alright, I guess my opponent is plus, I can't do anything there. And this is when you can start to mix up your opponent. Because once he thinks, alright, I guess I'm minus there, I need to wait, that's a free mix-up opportunity for you. Also, on counter hit, you're guaranteed a combo. Then we've got Setsu Nagake 2. As you can see, plus 12 on hit and it's minus 9 on block, so it's safe. Should this connect on counter hit, we get a combo as well. So pretty good stuff. It has some very good tracking as well. It's very difficult to step that move. Also one thing I forgot about Setsu Nagake 3. Should this get low blocked, you are going to get launched. So don't abuse the slide too much. If you use it from long range, your opponent will see it coming, because the more range between yourself and your opponent is, the more frames it takes for the move to come out. What else do we have? Setsu Nagake 4-3 we're never going to use on its own. This is mainly going to be used for wall carry, to get a wall split. Then we've got Setsu Nagake and the different strings. Remember the different 1-1 strings with 1-1-2, 1-1-4, stuff like that? Well, we've got that as an option here as well. So out from Setsu Nagake we can do 1-2-1 if our opponent loves to step, 1-2-2, which is the safe option, or 1-2-4 for more pressure. What else did we have? Right, the flip. If you press 3+4 while you do Setsu Nagake, you're going to do that flip, which has... hang on. Which has two options, or two main follow-ups. If you do immediately 2 after the flip, you get a knockdown low with a guaranteed 4-4-2 as a follow-up. If you do the flip and then 4, you get the mid version, which will leave you at a huge distance against your opponent. Or what I prefer to do is to not do anything. as you can see, it takes her a while to stand up. So in that kind of situation, you can just remain in crouch to apply while standing and full crouch mix up again. This move is useless, we can forget about this one. That one's pretty shit as well. Sometimes you see Kunimitsu players using that, but it has no real use. 4-2-3 you sometimes use to convert some combos, or out of neutral game for parry setup with back 2+4 or back 1+2 after. So if your opponent tries to interrupt you, he will eat the parry. Alright, so back 1+2 wasn't the option there, it was back 2+4. There we go. So that's a parry setup you have after that. Yeah, it's -6, so you won't have a room to actually move around, but it's great for setting up parries. Yeah, this is just the manual transition to go into Setsunagake. This one we talked about a bit. This is also one of our main strings to utilize in combos. So if I launch my opponent, this is our main screw. Yeah, this is for opponents who love to interrupt us. This is for floor break, or if we want to move around right after. Also, if the second hit connects on counter, you get a quarter circle forward 2 guaranteed. Or forward 2, your choice. This one we talked about as well. This one we talked about as well. This one... Ah, right. You can also cancel out of Setsunagake if you, for some reason, went for the dash and then see your opponent twitch or move in some situation where you think, guess he's gonna throw something out that's gonna catch me. You can cancel out of a dash to go into block pretty fast. Ah, yeah, that's one option I forgot. This one you use in combos where your opponent is too far away to actually get the string with a stomp. So you finish with that grab instead, because this floor breaks as well. This one on its own is pretty shit, but combined with the dash, it becomes very good, as you can see. Should our opponent try to interrupt us there, we're gonna trade. And as soon as he stops trying to trade for stuff, we can apply mix-up, we can go for cancels to stay in full crouch and mix our opponent from there. Or if we're really cheesy and think our opponent is trying to interrupt us nonetheless, we can go for the slide immediately after the dash. So we can fish for counter hits on close range, basically. Also, as you can see, the knee is used as a main staple in combos to actually convert or to continue the combo. Forward 1+2 is one of her 14 frame punishers. After this, if your opponent tries to immediately stand up, you get a guaranteed kunai throw. And if they decide to stay on the ground, you can just get them with a slide, or approach with a slide and then go for forward 4-2 or stuff like that. Forward 3+4 is another one of the homing moves, -2, so feel free to move around right after. Also, on counter hit, you get a counter hit combo. So very, very good homing move. You can kinda use it as a keep out and an approaching tool as well. so it has multiple uses. Down forward 1-2-2 and down forward 1-3. So down forward 1-2-2 you can kinda counter it, hit confirm. If you notice that the second hit connects, your opponent most likely tried to press something or stayed in crouch. If he tried to press something, on counter hit the full string is guaranteed, and at the wall gives you a guaranteed wall split. If this gets blocked however, and your opponent is Kazuya, Eddie or Josie, stuff like that, characters who have a 13 frame launcher, you're going to get launched if you misjudged the situation and just threw it out all nilly-willy. Down forward 1-3 is a lot more safer, because it ends with a high. The second on counter hit is one of the most damaging counter hits as well. So if you can manage and get the counter hit, it's a lot of damage. Try not to get too predictable, however, so don't overuse it. Neither of those two strings. Mix them properly or just use down forward 1 to poke your opponent and then go for sidestep movement to bait a whiff or annoy your opponent with some sidestep pressure. Down forward 2 is another one of her 15 frame launches. This one is -12 because it launches crouch. Okay. It doesn't launch crouching opponents. Interesting. Guess my memory was a bit off there. However, on counter hit, it's a launch if they are in crouch or standing, and if they are standing, it will always launch them. You can use it as a keep out tool as well. It has some decent range, and the damage you get from here is pretty okay as well. Down forward 3-2 is her scrub killing move. If you follow through with the full string, or just the mid connects, if only the mid connects, I think. Let's see. Let's check that real quick. Ah no. Even if the mid connects, the low can get blocked. If the low gets blocked, you're going to get while standing launch punished, so watch out for that. However, you can cancel the second hit by holding down to confuse your opponent, and then go for full crouch while standing mix-up. If you want to be even more disgusting about it, after cancelling, you can cancel her crouch by tapping up, and then immediately go for down forward 3+4 and hold back to go for back turned mix-up. So it would look something like this. Fucks with your mind, doesn't it? In a high pressure situation, very difficult to block for your opponent. Most people will either eat the mid, and as soon as they do, and they try to interrupt, you can let the full string rip, or then go for full crouch mix-up. So very, very strong. Down forward 1+2 is another move you could use for floor break. Out of neutral, I would not recommend using that move, because it is launch punishable by some characters, but it's an additional floor break option you have with her. Down forward 3+4, very good approaching tool, because if you hold back, you can go into back turned. Also, on block it's only -2, and it takes around 6 frames to turn around out of back turned. So if we add those 6 frames to the -2 we're at -8, means we're still safe. If we noticed that our opponent has immediately tries to mix us up with a low because we are so focused on turning around, we can jump out the way with back up 3. That will evade some mids and crush all highs and lows. It's a very powerful tool to use out of back turned when you noticed that it didn't connect on hit, because if it doesn't connect on hit, your pressure's gone, you need to evade, you need to go back into the defensive, block, parry, stuff like that, right? So this is one of your runaway tools. Down 1, great for pressure. It leaves you at -3, but because it forces your opponent into crouch, it's great to bait a wild standing 4 from your opponent, or any other wild standing move from your opponent. Make them whiff and then punish them for it. Uncountered, it's a hard knockdown into a guaranteed forward 4-2 or quarter circle 4-2 as well. This string you're mainly going to use at the wall, more to that later. Down 3-4-1. So this one's a bit special. If you only do the first 2, you're still safe, but you can't parry, you can't move around, you need to just stay on the defensive. If you notice that your opponent tries to immediately mix you up after this or punish you, you can throw out the kunai to try and catch them off guard for some free damage. If this gets blocked, however, you're going to eat a small punish. This string you can use as a wall ender or in some countered combos, for example with Setsunagaki 2. This is actually the most damaging option you have. So in some combos you can actually use that string to switch sides as well, if you feel like it. Or this string on its own is your most damaging options in some small countered combos. Down back 2-4-2. So if you only do down back 2, you can stay in crouch. So we know the game plan there. If we connect the first hit, the second is automatically guaranteed as well. The third one will always get blocked though. And it might force your opponent into crouch, but you're -8, so sadly no time to move around. Also, in between the second and the third move, your opponent can interrupt you because the last move comes out very, very slow. If your opponent is very awake, he could even just throw out a launch it, and it would still catch you. However, if you somehow manage to hit your opponent with the last hit only, you get a combo. So you can kinda see it as a free combo starter, but it's very rare that people duck into this and your only pickup is forward down forward 2, so a 14 frame launch punisher. So yeah. Manji spin no kicks, if you do them too much you will fall to the ground. You can use that however to your advantage actually, because if you keep doing that and your opponent is very defensive, doesn't immediately hit you with any grounded hits, you can go for 3+4 and get a small combo from it. Great for ending rounds. Also, you can just do 2 or immediately do a special while standing 4, which is like a part of a string. It won't get interrupted most of the time. I saw that it can get interrupted in some particular situations, but those are very, very rare. Most of the time this is pretty safe. Once you conditioned your opponent to wait for the mid, you just don't do it, stay in crouch and mix your opponent from there. Down back 4, very strong tool. As you can see, we're neutral on hit. Also, when we are very close to our opponent and we use that move, it pushes us back a bit. So we can either go for backdash movement to bait a whiff, sidestep movement, or try to pressure our opponent with jab strings and stuff like that. On counter hit, it forces crouch and leaves you at +8 as well. So you could go for a counter hit launch as well if you feel like it. Down forward 2 would be your best option there. Alright, then we've got down back 1+2. As you can see, she takes a step back before she attacks. So at the wall, after stuff where you still have time to move around, so between 0 and -4, feel free to utilize that move, because most of the time you will be able to evade mids with short range and highs with short range and get the wall bounce for free. Characters who have large hitboxes or have a lot of range in general, however, I would not use this move too much, because even if you take the step back, they will most of the time still hit you. Also, -14 in block. Some characters can launch punish that. Kunimitsu is a prime example for that. Then we've got the slap you silly. This one we get dizzy as well if we do this one too long. However, it's so minus that our opponent will either be able to get a full launch or a float combo. It has its uses though, because you can immediately go into her low spin kicks, and there she doesn't have that much of a dizziness and straight falls to the ground, where you can do the other stuff I showed you. Also, if only 2 connect, or 3, so doesn't matter how many connect, but for me, most of the time what's proven pretty useful is you do 2 and then immediately go for counter hits, or try to mid-check your opponent with down forward 1-2-2 for example. Very powerful at the wall. Back 2, strong move, unsafe though. It's power crush, screw and homing all in one. It's very fast, as you can see, faster than the normal power crush. It can be a weakness at times though. So if I were to do a power crush against another character that does a power crush at the same time, I would hit them, but they would tank through it with their power crush. We would be done with our animation and be minus, and then eat the entire hit of the power crush of our opponent, resulting in more damage because we didn't take the damage while doing the power crush. Back 3-4. This one you can use as a wall ender close to the wall to gain some distance to prepare down back 1+2 to fish for wall bounce. Or if you want some breathing room in general. It's -20, yes, but it's very difficult to punish for your opponent, even if he has the range for it. Also, if you only do the first one, you're -10. But because your opponent expects the follow-up, most of the time you can continue with jab pressure. Or try to immediately mix up your opponent, or go for sidestep game. Very weak opponents will of course intercept and interrupt you there, but against most people this actually works. Back 4 is one of her worse back turn stance transitions. This one on its own I would never use in neutral. However, you can use that in combos to get the pickup. I would count that as its main use actually. Back 4-3. a bit more safer because of a pushback, but this one your opponent will most likely be able to launch punish, because as you can see, between these two strings there is a lot of difference on how much distance there is between us and our opponent. Also, should the second connect uncountered, you get a guaranteed kunai throw, and, which is very strong at the wall, guaranteed rage drive. Oops, didn't use key charge. Then we've got back 1+2. This one has a hidden parry inside it. It's 13 frames, so very fast. It has pushback, it's -11, but sometimes if you hit this move from max range, your opponent's jabs won't be able to reach you. So it can be difficult to punish from time to time. Also, I talked about the hidden parry. Ah, crap. Need to record this differently. Let's see, what do we do? This should work, I think. So yeah, you can attack and defend at the same time. It's pretty strong. On hit, you get a guaranteed quarter circle forward twist out. Your opponent can't do anything about this. It's always guaranteed. Oops, let's see. Back 3+4 is the manual transition into her back turn stance. You can sometimes use it to gain some distance, or to just annoy your opponent to bait them into attacking, or to immediately gain access to her back turn moves if you don't want to utilize the strings, because your opponent got used to that. Also, what's very interesting, remember the different jab strings we have with her? We've got those from back turns as well. This one in particular, very strong at the wall, because if our opponent tries to interrupt, I think, yeah. If the second connects uncountered, guaranteed wall split, huge damage at the wall. You could go for pressure out of that situation as well, but as always with that floating kick from above, you can get floated out of it. Then we've got back turned 1-3, safe on its own, on hit only +1. If you go into the dash, however, should it connect, you can set up some counters. So your Setsunagake 2 becomes an uninterruptible counter hit mid-launcher. So very strong. You kinda can delay the second hit a bit, so you are able to hit confirm this. If you are able to hit confirm this and you can visually confirm that it connects, go for the dash, and then Setsunagake 2, or her command grab, or her different one strings. Then we've got this. This is going to be used as a parry setup mainly. You can use it in combos, yes, but I found it to be a bit unreliable. I rather would recommend using Fort 4, Setsunagake 1-1. This is probably the most reliable screw you have with her. Tobi Tengu. This one completely crushes lows. On block it's -3, so we can still turn around and are able to block any highs or mids our opponent throws to us. If this connects on hit, we get a guaranteed down 2. Yeah, there are some combos at the wall for this as well. Back turn 4. -3, as you can see, it pushes us back a bit, so we can go for backdashing or sidestep movement and bait whiffs to then punish our opponent. Also, on counter hit, it's a hard knockdown. Sometimes you can even get a pickup here, but this one is very contextual, it's very tricky to get. Most of the time it will not work, because it will just whiff. And you can't dash and then do it, because you don't have enough frames to do so. Because, as you can see there, the first hit connected, but the second didn't, so we didn't get this through for the combo. It's homing as well. This one's very strong. 14 frames fast, leaves us at -2, so feel free to step right after. If it connects +7, feel free to continue with your pressure or set up some nasty counter hits. Shadow Strike, very powerful tool. Doesn't matter if you hit your opponent with down forward 3+4 and then go into back turn, or 4-2 and then immediately go for it, it becomes uninterruptible. If your opponent tries to jab, here you will trade but still get the combo. Here it becomes completely uninterruptible, your opponent won't be able to even jab you. Also, it's pretty safe on block, with -12 only. So a launcher for -12 with good damage potential, pretty good. Sinking Thrust. Forces your opponent into crouch at +3, feel free to pressure right after. On counter hit, you get a combo as well. The kunai throw can whiff from time to time, because your opponent will fly off axis sometimes. In that situation, I would recommend using her Setsunagake up forward 4 instead. It's less damage, but it's more reliable. Araremaki. It's a double low. However, your opponent can block the first low and low parry the second. So people who have good Kunimitsu knowledge are going to give you a hard time there. Also, because both are kicks, both are low parryable. The dagger, however, we used before, can't be low parried because it's a weapon. This has to be blocked. I think this was okay punishable as well. Yeah, -14. Jin is able to launch that, Kazuya, Eddie, the usual suspects basically. Yes, her back-turned command grab is a pretty good option as well from time to time. I don't remember if this floor breaks, it might do, I'm not sure anymore. Up back 2, -7, has some pushback. You can't really move around anymore, but you can set up some parries. Also on counter you get this neat animation here. Nigimisu, out of neutral, we're not gonna use that. However, if we're back turned and we expect a mid or a low or any kind of fast move that would normally be able to hit us, then we use this. One thing I forgot to mention. Her back turned lows completely high crush as well. So if you are in a situation where you are minus normally and should not be able to get away with stuff like that, sometimes you can throw out those lows if you expect a high, in hopes of crushing that high and get the countered combo. This is another one of the most damaging launchers, but the same rules as with the other launcher apply. So this one is launch punishable on block. Yeah. So high risk, high reward. Tobikage you can use to switch sides. As you can see, it takes her some time to stand up, so she recovers in crouch. If you hold down, you can immediately apply full crouch while standing mix-up. Unblockable, nothing special about this one. This one's good because it's a combo starter, and on block it's, I believe it was +5? Yeah, +5, and it forces crouch. Insanely good move. The only drawback, it barely has any range. You can evade this to evade moves from your opponent as well, to fish for launch. Up for 2 gives you this low that leaves you at +8. You can cancel the low to immediately mix your opponent. Also uncountered launch. Up forward 3 and up forward 3-4. One of her main 15 frame launchers, together with down forward 2. Sometimes you use that for wall carry, for example, to still get the wall split if the wall is a bit closer than usual. Up forward 4. Sometimes you can get a pickup here, but it's very situation dependent. Normally you will just get a forward 4-2. Yeah. And that's it, sadly. The flip we already talked about with her follow-ups. One thing I forgot to mention though, if this low connects on counter, it's a countered launch as well. Forward 4-2, climbing shadows. This one you use for guaranteed stuff after hard knockdowns. Also, you can use that to fish for counters from a distance. Does a good amount of damage as well, should it connect. 81 damage, and that's without rage. Forward 4-2 we already talked about as well. It's one of the best punishers in the game, but because of the forward input, very difficult to input in a high pressure situation. Forward 1+2 is fast unblockable high. Wall splits as well can be useful from time to time. Forward 3+4 and the different options. So, forward 3+4-2 will only convert into combo uncounted, but on block, unsafe as fuck, you will get launched. The same thing into Tobi Tengu, however, -3. You can go back into the defensive and still block any incoming highs and mids, so it's pretty safe. However, while you do the backflip, your opponent can jab you out of the air to get a float combo, so watch out for that. If you conditioned your opponent to wait for either of those two moves, that's when you go into backturn and then start mixing your opponent from there. Also, you can go into Tobikage to switch sides and then immediately go for full crouch while standing mix up. The 14 frame launch we already talked about. Punishable on block though. Launch punishable on block. Kunai throw is pretty strong at max range. Your opponent is not able to punish it because it's only -11 on block. And you're only going to get teleported towards your opponent if it connects on block. So if it doesn't connect on block, you remain in the same place. you mainly use it as a combo ender. You could utilize it as a space controlling tool, but if you're not full range, it's free damage you give away. Also, I don't want you guys to be that kind of Kunimitsu who just spams that all day, because that's dumb. This one we already talked about. Free follow-up after hard knockdowns. This one's good. This is her safest wall split, I think. Yeah, at -9. Tracks very well to both sides. Wall breaks, balcony breaks, and wall splits. Great move. Yeah. This I don't really use. Most of the time you're gonna get hit out of it. You can use it at the wall after stuff like back 3-4, the Kodama flip. But that would require a hard read on your opponent where you know he's going to immediately close in towards you. 4-4-2. I believe that one was actually neutral and block. Yeah, it's neutral and block. As is her running 3. If this connects on block, feel free to go for backdash or sidestep movement. If it connects on hit, you get that neat little animation. This animation you sadly only get when your opponent is normally on the ground, either standing or crouching, doesn't matter. But if he's in the air and you go for it, you won't get the animation, sadly. While standing 1-1 is your go-to 13 frame Punisher. Should the second hit connect uncountered, guaranteed quarter circle forward 2. If it gets blocked, you're safe. And -8, so you could go for parries. Then we've got while standing 2-4, so basically you mix between those two, because if your opponent starts stacking the high on that string, if he blocks the high, if he blocks the mid and ducks the high, he can while standing punish you for it. This move is very good, however, because you can hit confirm it to then go into dash. So if it connects, you immediately go into dash for more pressure. If it doesn't connect on hit, you don't go for the dash and you're still safe. Also, you can delay the second hit quite a bit. So this is me doing the string immediately, and this is me delaying it as much as possible. This is useful because the second hit of the string is a counter at launch as well. And as soon as you notice that your opponent ducks the high a bit too often, you go for while standing 1-1. Yeah, this is your main 15 frame while standing launcher. Full crouch forward 2 is one of the safer lows you have with her. You don't have too many options from here. You either go for another full crouch thing with her if you know that your opponent is turtling, or stand up with while standing 4, or what we talked about earlier, press up to immediately get out of crouch and then go for down forward 3+4 to go into back turns again. Full crouch forward 3 gives you a guaranteed forward 2. On sidestep, if you hold back, you can go into a back turn stance. If it hits, you can get your opponent with Shadow Blade still. If this gets blocked, however, and you are back turned, congrats, you played yourself. You're -11 if you try to turn around now, so you will eat a punish. It's better to run away with Kunimitsu or go for parries, or try to high crush your opponent with fast lows. Sidestep 2, 1+2 is against opponents who try to interrupt you. If the first hit connects on counter, the follow-up is guaranteed, and then you get quarter circle 4-2 guaranteed as well, which is a lot of damage. 61 damage in total, so that's pretty good as well. Sidestep 4 is a sweep, gives you guaranteed forward 2. At the wall, great, because if your opponent tries to stand up immediately, you might get a wall split. Taunt. You can do it back turned as well. If you really want to style or annoy your opponent. The 10 hits I'm gonna skip, those are most of the time useless. Yeah, this one you break with 1. Switches sides, this one with 1+2. The parry we talked about. Yeah, this is the same parry but out of back turn. The weakness with this parry is your opponent can sidewalk, sidestep, float you out of it with jabs or any move that's fast enough, because the startup of that move takes quite a long time. Or he can just walk under you as well, so that kinda sucks. Oops. Or just dash under you, so it's not the greatest parry. Oh, forgot to jab. Oops. I just suck at the moment. So yeah. Opponents who have a lot of strings in their moveset are going to float you out of there quite reliably, so that sucks. Alright, now some world stuff, and then we're through with Kunimitsu for now. I ordered some food, so I want to get to my food as fast as possible as well, so it doesn't get cold. But this we can still do quick. Alright, wall game. So remember the string with back for 3 on countered we talked about? This hurts, or will hurt, as you will be able to see in a bit. Oh, distance wasn't right. Sucks to get hit by that at the wall, doesn't it? Also, should your opponent block, you see, our opponent is getting a bit of damage because he hits the wall. So sometimes you can use that to close out rounds. Also, after wall split, you've got different combo options. You either do 1, down forward 1, and then down 2, let me think, down 2, 1, 2. Oh goddamn, I actually, hang on. It's muscle memory at this point. Jesus Christ, actually, I did it before, why am I struggling now? There we go. Down 2, 1, 2, 1+2, that's your ender. So yeah. Or, if you want to mix your opponent, you go for Setsu Nagake, go for the flip, and then Shadow Blade to go for guaranteed Okizeme trap. This only works against characters that are not as tall as Jack, Mardak, Fakumaram, characters like those, right? You could just do the flip on its own to get over your opponent as well, but timing that is a bit more difficult. If you immediately go for a flip, it gets a lot easier. Also, sometimes if you use the after long combos with a stomp, right, and your opponent is a bit off axis, let's actually go for a restart here. Sometimes you will switch sides. If you do switch sides, you get a chance for a guaranteed Shadow Blade, so it's another Oki trap. Another wall combo you have, if you want to style or go for back turn pressure. What was it again? Back 1-1, and then you immediately go for flips. And then you can mix them from there, either with a flip, the different kind of lows, the grab. Got a lot of options there. Also remember how I was talking about wall carry with a double hop kick. Let's demonstrate that real quick. Oops. Another also. Yeah, that was too many hits. If you do rage drive against an opponent that has been wall splatted once, you get an additional wall splat. Right, also this one we talked about, but I haven't shown that. Very strong should Karton 1 connect and counter it. But getting the timing is pretty tricky, as you can see. Alright, then quarter circle forward 1+2. The free wall split we talked about. Also, after wall splitting your opponent, if your opponent is already at wall and you didn't carry him there, sidestep. This is a bit more tricky. You can do stuff like that. Sometimes you will switch sides and then get a guaranteed Shadow Blade. Alright. I think I pretty much covered maybe one more thing on how to further confuse your opponent. If you, for example, get a punish, right? You can go into Karton, dash, flip. Your opponent expects either mid or low out of that situation because full crouch while standing mix up, but you go for the cancel. So will completely mess with your opponent's head if you chain those cancels together like that. This only works against people though who play very defensive or are turtling a lot, or who try to analyze your fighting pattern. Against people who press a lot, this most likely won't work. There you will just have to follow through with the different options you have. So the stuff you throw out will be a lot shorter. This has been my Kunimitsu tutorial. I hope you learned some new stuff you didn't know before, and I will see you next stream. Till then.